Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, Using SMART to Differentiate the Curriculum, Foundation through to Year 2. If you'd like to ask a question throughout the webinar, you can just by clicking on the speech bubble with the question mark inside. I will be here supporting the presenter in the background, so feel free to ask questions at any time. But we'll also have time for questions at the end where you can ask the presenter directly. If you'd like to get a certificate for this webinar to go towards your PD hours, you can. I usually have the webinars up and running the following week. So next Tuesday, Wednesday, this will be up on training.smarttech.com. So you could just log into your account, and if you've already listened to it, it'll let you scroll to the end and you just click on the Mark Complete button, and then it should give you the option to download a PDF certificate. Okay, so today's presenter, we have Meagan Parsons from the LINQ Academy. She's the learning designer with SMART technologies and a SMART exemplary educator. So sit back and enjoy. I'll pass it over to Meagan now.
Okay, so hi everyone, thanks for joining me. Today I'm just going to do a little chat about how I differentiate the curriculum in my classroom. So the purpose of today is just to show you how I use the SMART Learning Suite to enhance the differentiation in my classroom. I'll give you a little overview of how that works, and hopefully you'll be inspired to walk away and have a go at doing this yourself. And at the end of this session, I will be able to give you a little mini template so that you can actually start building straight away. Okay, let's go. So this activity that I've got set up here today is a lesson that I did with my Year 1 class earlier this year. So we were learning about number lines. So the whole lesson is about number lines and just extending those children that need extending and supporting the ones that need a little bit more help. So my lessons always start off with our Walt and our Wilf. It's something that we're required to do. So just explaining to the children that today what you're learning is to locate numbers on a number line, and what I'm looking for at the end is that you can read the number line, find the numbers on a number line, and add numbers to a number line that are missing. So what I like to do is always start off with a little YouTube clip. So this is just one that I found about number lines. It's a really simple little one that I've just done a YouTube search for and embedded it into the unit. At this point, we're still working through this lesson as a whole class. So we all sit and watch this one. Then I give them a little warm-up activity. So this one's really good because I can click over here on the little iPad and set it up for my class to use so they can all be having a go together. And then I can call 1 or 2 children up to the front. So the warm-up is just getting them thinking about numbers in order. So 3 at the start, 14, what would come next? So they'll just come up, drag and drop, and pop their numbers in the right order. This one's set up so that it will mark it instantly and they can see how they're going straight away. If they pop one in the wrong spot, it'll tell them, nope, try again. So this is just getting them thinking about numbers in the right order. Then we come to this one. So what I would do is down here on this spinner, have the children's names written on there so that one child can come up and have a go on the board. So we just spin the spinner. Great, it's ended up on this person. Come on up and let's pop the numbers back on the number line. So the numbers down the bottom have been cloned so that when they drag it up, it stays down there and they can take as many. The idea behind that was that the students aren't just going, oh, okay, I've got this number left, but they actually have to think and go, okay, what number comes next? So if I had them just disappearing as they made it, they're going to automatically go, oh, this is left, and it just makes it that little bit too easy to see how they're going. So the next activity then is similar. Again, I've got the spinner there to spin up a name, and then they just need to come and drag one of the missing numbers in. Again, I've included all of the numbers down the bottom so that they can see all of the numbers and it's not giving them the answers pretty easily. So this activity, I'm just going to drop out of that view for a minute, was designed to use with the magic pen. So I'm going to go and open up my magic pen and just draw a circle on my screen. So what I would do to say to the students is, okay, if the number's 44, what number comes before? Then we can move along and check their answer. Great, what number comes after 46? move it along and check if they've got it. So it just makes it a little bit more interactive and fun for them to have a play with that. And so this is still all part of our warm-up of the lesson. So this is the bit where I come to giving them a little bit of a pre-assessment. So in here is some quizzes, and I can jump into, oh, I'm just going to turn off my pen for you and jump back in. So in this view, the students have got a whole series of questions that I've typed in for them to see what they know. And what I've done is I've grouped them. So my first few questions are my easier questions. Then they start getting harder and harder as they go on until we get to one that's a little bit more difficult, that's got some missing numbers, the bigger number chunks on the number line. So the purpose of that is that as the children work through it, I can see who's not quite getting what I'm expecting for a sound achievement, who's getting a sound but needs that pushing a little bit more to get a high on their next assessment, and those children that are nailing it all, and I can start extending them even further. So once the students have worked through this assessment task, I can actually pull out their results. So these are the results from my class earlier this year. And so what I could clearly do then is go through and see, okay, these little friends down here that have got some reds at the really simple number lines, they're my friends that aren't getting a sound yet. So I'm going to pull them aside and I'm going to put them in one group. My friends that are getting quite a lot of green at the start, and then we start seeing some reds in the middle, I'm going to put them in my second group. And my friends that are getting green the whole way along, they need extending because they're nailing all of this, I'm going to put them in my third group. At this point, when I'm analysing this data, I would either have the students working at their desks with a whiteboard and having a go at drawing some number lines, or get to this point at morning tea, send them outside for their play, I analyse the data, and I start putting their names into my groups. So by the time they come back from morning tea, we're ready to jump into the actual differentiated part of this lesson. So in here, I would type their names, sort them into their groups with how they went. So my red group are my friends that are struggling a little bit, need a little bit of support. My yellow group are the ones that I want to extend that little bit more. And my green group are the ones that are smashing it, and I'm going to push them a lot further. At this point, I would drop my file into Smart Learning Suite Online so that I can have it set up for the children so that they can work at their own pace. So from here, they can click on the colour that they belong to, and they'll be able to work at their own pace. So I'm going to jump in as a red student for now so you can see what that looks like. So they just click on the red. Okay, let's just jump to the red group. So my red group start off with the little activity to explain what they need to do. So they can keep coming back to this activity as often as they need it and see how to work out what the numbers are missing. So the instructions are there for them to say, great, start here. Can you work it out? Did I work it out? Now I'm thinking about what number is missing. What is it? The missing number is 32. So this little label reveal is sitting there, and they can come back to that at any time and see how they're going. Then they've got this little activity. So this is just one where the number lines are there and they've got some missing numbers at the top. So they just need to drag down the number and sit it on top of the one that they need. Once this activity has gone into SLSO, I convert this one to a handout so the students can work on it and save that little handout so I can see how they went later on. Another one of the activities that this little red group have is just match it up. So they've got the numbers on one side and it's missing the number. So they would drag out this one and they're looking for the missing number from the middle. So it's just getting them to practice their number sequences, and they can check those after they've imported each one or wait until the end to see how they're going. So these numbers are getting a little bit harder, but it's just getting them to think about those numbers in order and where they would come. So this is another one where they're just looking at their number lines and thinking about the numbers that are missing. And the beauty with this one is that they are able to check their answers. The page before, they're having to just do it and see how they've gone later. This one will give them the answers. So once they've put all of their answers in, let's do one wrong at the same time so you can see, then it will give them the option to check, and they can see how they've gone, and then they can work out the ones that aren't right and put them back in the right spaces. So this one's stepping it up just a little bit more for them. What I was finding with my year ones is that they were struggling a little bit with explaining their thinking. So I've given them the number line and said, this is the number that you were finding. How would you explain that to me now? So I've just set up a little super sort so they can read the response and say, yep, that did explain my thinking, or no, it didn't. So a lot of them will say to you, how did you work out that number? I guessed it. So if they think that explains it, it's going to throw it back. What I found with this particular activity was my students would all sit together working in the red group. And when they got to this, they'd be like, wait, why didn't that explain my thinking? And so they'd have these conversations around it and start to analyze with each other and go, oh, maybe I needed to give more information. Let's try this one. The number has 3 tens. Oh, okay, so I need to talk about how many tens. I can't just have a guess. So it really extended them with explaining what they were thinking and how to explain it to somebody else, which was really exciting. So the next activity was now getting them to think about the before and after numbers. So tell me what number comes before 33. So again, it's just a match-up one. I'm looking for 32, finding those matches. So we've moved on from finding those numbers in the number line now to having to think about the words before and after as well, which is what we were looking for these students to get a sound. So once they'd worked through all of those, they had the opportunity to go back and practice some more, or they'd get to this point and they could click and it would take them to the assessment piece again. And that way we could reassess them and see how they'd gone. I like to encourage them to just keep going back and playing a few until they were really successful and they knew that they were getting them all right. But some of them were like, no, I've got this. I want to move on and see how I went. So then in this file, you'll see I've now got my yellow group. So my yellow group were those children that have achieved a sound. Now I want to push them to get a high or a very high. So again, they've started off with their little explanation of how this works, and they're just going to click on them. Their instructions are a little bit more in depth. So it's actually getting them to think about it a little bit more and then explain how you did it. Great, this is a good explanation that we're looking for. So they had a whole series of activities as well where they could drag them down. So now what I was looking for was them to think about their counting patterns. So they're not having every number on their number line anymore. So you need to tell me, what is this number line counting in? And they would just drag down. So again, once this went into SLSO, I converted this particular page into a handout so the students could move those little boxes around and label the number lines. So another activity for my yellow group was the same sorting activity, but now you'll see those numbers are higher. So we're pushing more towards the hundreds and they're having to think about those higher numbers. My red group were working in the lower numbers under 50. Again, same activity that the red group had, just pushing them to those bigger numbers, even getting towards 100, starting to move beyond a little bit more. So this again was that explaining their thinking. To get a very high, they had to explain it in more detail. So using ones like, I knew it came after 80 because it had 8 tens. I know 3 comes between 2 and 4. So they're having to explain using some more details how they've come to their answer. This was one of the activities that we had where it was a hands-on one. So using the flip it out that you can see on the screen, I also had some bingo cards out for the children and some counters. And what I got them to do is get into groups of 3 or 4 and have one device between them. So the one device sat in the middle, they all had their own counters and cards. One person would flip over a card. They'd read the question and then try and find that on their number line on the actual bingo card. Once they'd found it, and the next person got to flip another card over. So this was really fun to watch because they were actually working together, and you could see the students who were struggling to understand the more and less than had other children there saying, oh, I can see it on yours, I'm going to give you a clue. And they weren't giving them the answer, but they were actually helping them to work it out. So they were working together as a little team, which was really nice to see. And then once they've done them all, they just pick the pile and it would get rid of the ones we've used and keep going. So there's quite a few in that stack for them to be looking for on their bingo cards. Then what we were looking for our particular children is to get a VH in their assessment, is to be able to problem solve. So read the problem and solve that problem using a number line. So all of these activities with the problem solving, I would have set up as handouts once I'd uploaded it to the SLSO, and the children were then able to read the problem. They could highlight the parts. We use a strategy at our school called FISH. So the F is what I'm looking for. So they'd highlight how many frogs are on the log. The I is what information do I have? So we're getting them to look for, I know there's 3, I know there's 4. The S is what strategy am I going to use? So the strategy is I'm going to use a number line. And then the H in FISH is how do I know that's correct? So we actually encourage them to then try another strategy and see if they've got the same answer both times. And that way they can justify their answer. So I just put in a whole heap of those little different kinds of problems using different strategies that we've been using. So counting on, counting backwards, near doubles. And then again, once they'd worked through all of their activities, they would click here and go to their final assessment piece. And then we've got the green group. So my green group were those students that were achieving really well and needed to be extended even further. So this time they've got the similar instructions about working it out. So, okay, I know it's somewhere between this number and this number, but I can see it's closer to 50. This is what my number is, and then how am I going to explain it? So wanting them to actually use those words, it was closer to 50 and not smack bang in the middle where 45 would go. So these guys were now starting to work with those bigger numbers and not just in sequential order, but skip counting. So they're having to go no and work out here, okay, if I'm starting at 85, I'm moving to 135, what am I counting in? Having a look here and going, okay, well, I can only see 5s and 0s at the end, so I must be counting in 5s, and build it from there so they can start putting their numbers in. And this one's set, so they have to wait until they've put them all in to check their answer. So these ones are all designed that they can just be working at their own pace. So again, you can see here, starting at 70, going up to 180, and they've got to look at it and go, okay, all of my numbers are ending in a 0, I must be counting in 10s, and then work it out from there. So a few different ones. This time I didn't even tell them what the ending number was, so I gave them the start. I want you to work it all out for yourselves here, and let's see if you can work out what this number pattern is counting in. Then it was a real challenge. So year ones aren't required to skip count in 3s. So we just gave them that little bit of a harder one to really extend them beyond what they were capable of at this point of the year. So this activity you would have seen in the red and the yellow groups as well. We've made it that little bit harder now. So the students have the numbers with their little sticks and they need to pop them on. What we were finding was most of our students would grab out the 88 and go, yep, it's between 80 and 90, I'm going to pop it here. And we've really been working with them on, okay, 88 is actually closer to 90, so we want you to move that closer to the 90 and thinking about all those little spaces in between each one. So once they'd put them all in place, then we were asking them to take a screenshot of this page and drop it into Seesaw. So we use Seesaw as our portfolio, and the students are able to drop their photo into there and then record over the top explaining exactly how they put it, why they put it where they did. So it's just pushing them that little bit further from, yes, I did it, to great, now you're going to explain to me exactly how you did that. So then we get to that even more challenging where we're giving them just an empty number line. Doesn't even have the lines on it. What we want you to do is draw on your little lines and fill in the numbers, and then you're going to find some missing numbers. So this page was just fill out the number line. The next one gives them the instructions. Okay, now you're going to go back and put in these 3 missing numbers onto those 3 number lines. Once you've done that, you're going to save it to Seesaw and record yourself explaining why you've put those numbers in those places again. So it's getting them to do a little bit of app smashing between some apps, but really explaining their thinking. And then we have a whole series of problem solving for this group. Our VH children are always the ones that are getting pretty good at their problem solving, so we start giving them a few harder ones. So we've got a couple of ones that involve doubles. What we find with these particular ones is they'll look at it and they'll say, I know it's 14, but we want them showing it on a number line to give them that next strategy. So we insist that they do it on the number line for this particular lesson so that they're having to try another strategy and explain why they're doing it. So just popped in a whole heap of different problems. Some of them are doubles, some of them are just countbacks, but they're starting to get harder and harder with those bigger numbers as well. So the children are having to work a little bit more. And then we started adding in some 2-step problems as well. So in this one, we're doing a bit of addition first, and then there's some subtraction. So they have to show the addition and then show the subtraction on that bottom line to see how they're going. And then once they've done all of those, again, they click here and it takes them back to the pre-assessment that you saw at the beginning. So we're going to do the exact same assessment, but see if you've progressed further along. So when I did this with my class, I had about 90% of the children that had made dramatic improvements in their first results. A couple of the children didn't move or actually went backwards a little bit, and it was a really good opportunity to pull them aside and say, okay, so how long did you take to play those activities? Were you actually concentrating? No. Okay, how about we give it another go and keep you working on that from there. So what's going to happen at the end of this session is Kendall is going to drop you, email you my differentiation template. So this is what you're going to get, and it's just the skeletons of that lesson that I gave you. So just telling you to pop your title and an image in here. I've left the Walt and the Wilf images in so that you can add those. There's even a screen there to add a YouTube video. And if you haven't added a YouTube video, it's actually really quick and easy. So over here in your add-ons, you just click YouTube and search, and it all happens within the software. So if you were doing a unit on counting big numbers, you can search for it. You can play the video in here to test it and see if it's the right video. Oh, a bit loud. And then you just add the video. And it's going to drop it in for you. And what you'll notice is there's no ribbon at the bottom with ads. When it starts without any of the ads at the beginning. It's one of my pet peeves, is waiting for that 5 seconds to be able to skip my ad. So it drops it in there without any of that. And that's there ready to go. Then there's a page there for you to add some class lab activities as a little bit of a warm up. Add in your SMART response for your pre-assessment there. And then I've left the groups in here. So that page is pretty much ready to go. You just need to add the student names in when you're ready for that. And I've left in a red page, a yellow page, and a green page for you. And also the one that says, great, click here to take me to the final assessment. So you'll see down the side there, yellow, green, green, and then a page for that pre-assessment to repeat the same SMART response again. And then it's really easy to just link those pages. So if I click on my image and use my little drop-down box over here, I can click on link my page. I'm going to link it to another page in this file, and I want it to go to my red group. And the thing that I tend to forget is change it to this object. So I can click object and say insert my link. And now what will happen is when I click on my frog, it will take me to my red group. So then I can do the same for my yellow. So I link it to a page in this file, and I want my yellow group this time, and I want it to be the object I click, insert the link. So now it will take them straight to that yellow group. So you can just have them working independently throughout that activity on their own. So I think we're pretty much ahead of time there, Kendall. So just a little bit of information about where I am from. I actually work for the Sheldon LINQ Academy. So we're a brand new part of the Sheldon College where we are offering training for people on all different kinds of levels. So we are committed to providing training for students, for adults, and for the community, and inspiring people with their education and how they actually approach it in their classrooms. And we do offer a whole heap of different SMART trainings from Sheldon College. So anyone that is in the Southeast Queensland region, we do have some in-class sessions that are just half an hour, pop in, come and see how it's being used. Our 2-hour programs where it can be designed and tailored to exactly what the school is looking for. And then we have our full day master programs where we can tailor the whole day to what you are looking for at your school. And we try and keep those to really small groups so that you can get exactly what you're looking for. So thank you very much for joining me today. I hope you've learned a little bit, and we might do some questions if there are any. All right,
Great,
back to you, Kendall.
Thanks so much. Thanks so much, Meagan. There's awesome tips in that to keep the class focused. That was awesome for now, but I did email your template to the 3 attendees that we have today, and I'll also email that to everybody else who listens afterwards. So great, we'll move on now. No, definitely no questions. So. Okay, so if anybody would like any free SMART resources and lesson templates, you can just log on to our exchange.smarttech.com. There's loads on that. You can find the SMART monsters. We get a lot of requests for the SMART monsters. You can even get the summer theme monsters on that as well. Just for those who missed the start of the webinar about getting the certificate, I'll just quickly run through that again. You can just jump on to training.smarttech.com. I usually have that up and running by the following week, so next Tuesday, Wednesday, if you just want to log on and then just find this webinar and scroll to the end, and if you click on the Mark Complete button that's circled there in the red circle, you can download a PDF and it can go towards your PD hours. So we're more than halfway through this term's webinars now. We've got 2 more left. Next week, Wednesday the 20th, we have Unpacking the Digital Technologies curriculum with Associate Professor James Curran. He also was one of our keynotes at the Inspiring Greatness Conference at the start of October. So he will be recapping his keynote, which was it was an awesome presentation. So if you missed that, definitely encourage you to log on to catch that, and even for those who want to listen to it again, because I know I'm looking forward to listening to it again as well. And also the following week, we have on Wednesday, the 27th of November, we have using SMART Learning Suite in a high school maths setting with one of our SMART exemplary educators, Vicky, in New Zealand. So she'll be presenting that, and there'll be lots of awesome content in that as well. So I think we're right on time. So I'll let everyone go off and enjoy their afternoon. And thanks again, Meagan, and thanks everybody for logging in. See you later.
Thank you.